A butterfly might be named after a witch. Not metaphorically, not as a folk tale someone made up to sound interesting, but as a genuine documented theory about why English speakers started calling this insect what they call it. The word is over 1,000 years old, the explanation is genuinely unsolved, and the butter-stealing witch theory is more credible than it sounds. To understand where butterfly comes from, you need to picture England sometime around the early medieval period. This is a world built around subsistence farming. Dairy was not just food, it was survival currency. Butter and milk represented hours of labor, precious fat for winter, income for a family. You churned butter by hand, you stored it in clay pots, you left it in cool corners of the house because refrigeration was a millennium away. And things went wrong with butter all the time. It spoiled, it went missing. It failed to form properly during churning, which was genuinely mysterious to people who had no concept of bacterial contamination or humidity. When something valuable and poorly understood keeps failing, human psychology does what it always does. It finds an agent to blame. Someone is taking it. Something is taking it. Into this world of anxious, dairy-dependent households comes a small yellow insect. It shows up in spring and summer, exactly when butter is being made and stored. It flutters around kitchens and outbuildings. It is frankly suspicious. Origin story. The earliest recorded form of the word appears in Old English as buttorfleoge. That compound is exactly what it looks like. Buttor, meaning butter, and fleoge, meaning fly. The earliest record we have of it is from 2026, though the word almost certainly existed in spoken language long before any scribe thought to write it down. Now, here is where etymology gets genuinely complicated. Linguistically, the word traces back through a layered inheritance. Old English itself was shaped heavily by Proto-Germanic roots, and the broader European language family connects Latin and Greek frameworks to the Germanic branch that eventually became English. Buttor connects to Proto-Germanic roots for the substance we still call butter, which itself passed through Latin butyrum from Greek butteron, likely a compound meaning something close to cow cheese or ox butter. The fly part is straightforward. The combination is not. Jacob Grimm, the same Grimm behind the fairy tale collections, was one of the most serious early investigators of Germanic word origins. Working in the 19th century in Germany, Grimm documented the folk belief that gave the witch theory its scholarly legs. According to Grimm's research into Germanic folklore, witches were believed to take the form of butterflies, particularly yellow ones, specifically to steal milk and butter from households. The insect, in this framework, did not get named because it looks like butter or because it eats butter. It got named because it was the creature a butter thief became. Grimm was not alone in taking this seriously. Folklorists across Northern Europe in the 1800s documented strikingly similar beliefs in Dutch, German, and Scandinavian communities. The Dutch word for butterfly, vlinder, takes a different path entirely, but older Germanic dialects had terms that echoed the same anxious association with dairy theft. And this suggests the belief was not a cute local quirk, it was a widespread functional explanation that real people used to explain real losses. What makes this more than a fairy story is the consistency. When independent communities across a large geographic area share a specific, detailed belief, that is not coincidence. That is cultural memory of something people genuinely feared and genuinely used to explain their world. The misconception. The common assumption is that butterfly is simple and obvious. Yellow, butterfly, yellow butter, case closed. Schoolbooks have repeated this for decades. It sounds logical. It is also almost certainly incomplete and maybe entirely wrong. Here is the problem with the color theory. Not all butterflies are yellow, and the Old English speakers who coined buttorfleoge knew that. They were farmers and hunters with detailed observational knowledge of the natural world. They were not making a casual color comparison and calling it a name. They named things with intention and meaning. Calling the entire category of these insects after butter, purely because some of them are yellowish, would be like calling all birds snowbird, because some are white. The witch theory, documented seriously by Grimm and supported by parallel folklore across Northern Europe, actually accounts for the name in a culturally coherent way. In a world where unexplained dairy loss was a real economic problem, and where witchcraft was the explanatory framework people reached for, naming the suspected culprit is exactly what you would do. The butterfly was not named for what it looks like. It may have been named for what people believed it was doing. The honest answer is that no one has closed this question definitively. The origin of buttorfleoge is genuinely, officially obscure. Etymology has limits, and this is one of them. Modern echoes. The uncertainty around butterfly is not just a historical footnote. It surfaces in living language in ways that are easy to miss. The word butter still carries a faint residue of its old associations with transformation and corruption. We butter people up, Butterfingers suggests something slipping away from you unexpectedly. The physical sensation described as butterflies in the stomach is not about the insect's appearance, it is about an uncanny fluttering, something inside you that is not quite under your control. In folklore studies and anthropology, the witch as butterfly motif continues to appear in research on European folk magic. Scholars studying early modern witch trial records from England and Germany have found references to shape-shifting beliefs that match exactly what Grimm described. These are not marginal sources. They are courtroom documents, church records, and household accounts from communities where people genuinely organized their legal and spiritual lives around these beliefs. The butterfly also persists as a symbol of transformation in ways that may trace back to those same deep roots. The caterpillar to butterfly change is genuinely bizarre biologically, and ancient people noticed that. Something that dissolves itself and reforms into a different creature was always going to attract powerful symbolic weight. Deeper connections. Buttorfleoge sits inside a fascinating web of related words and parallel histories. The butter, half of the compound, connects English directly to Greek through Latin, one of the cleaner through lines in the language. Greek butteron becomes Latin butterum, which feeds into Proto-Germanic and eventually Old English buttor and then modern butter. That is a remarkably clean chain for a word this old. The fly component connects to an enormous Proto-Germanic root that spread across nearly every Germanic language. German fleege, Dutch vlieg, Old Norse fluga, all share the same ancestor. The concept of a flying insect was stable and consistent across a huge language family, which makes buttorfleoge as a compound feel almost inevitable once you have both halves. What is linguistically unusual is that English kept this particular compound when so many related languages did not. German went with Schmetterling, which has its own dairy-adjacent folk etymology in some dialects. Dutch took a different path entirely. English kept the butterfly structure, which suggests the belief or the association behind the name was strong enough in Old English communities to lock the word in place before the language diversified further. There's also a broader pattern here worth noting. Many of the oldest English animal names carry embedded beliefs from a world where animals were not just animals. They were omens, agents, and sometimes enemies. Nightmare contains a creature. Ladybug contains the Virgin Mary. Butterfly may contain a witch. The language is a fossil record of how people once understood their relationship with the natural world, and that record is stranger and richer than most people realize. The fact that we still do not know for certain what buttorfleoge originally meant is not a failure of etymology. It is an honest reflection of how language actually works. Words form in communities before anyone writes them down, shaped by fears and beliefs and practical experience, and sometimes the full story does not survive. What survives is the word itself, still flying, still carrying its mystery. What is